Angel of Everything by Catherine Devise. Chapter 1. The girl's hands were frozen, gripping at her coat, fighting with the wind to keep it from opening and exposing her semi-clothed body to the world. Her bare feet had lost all sensation, and her long dark hair was wild in the storm. She pushed on. The ocean pounded against the promenade wall, exploding over, biting cold, drenching her to the bone. She reached the playground at the front of the town. The street lamps were out, but she could still make out the outline of the climbing frame and the slide. The roundabout spun, creaking and groaning. The empty swings swung back and forth. Facing the sea, she thrust her arms up to the sky. Something exciting, anything, had to happen in her life. She said a prayer to the angel of happenings and sent it far out across the black waves. She managed to climb on one of the swings. It twisted around, trying to throw her off. She gripped tight and closed her eyes. The gale pushed her up into the purple and black sky with the mad gulls who had given up fighting the storm, letting themselves be carried by the wind currents any which way. She swung up and her coat fell open. The downpour washed over her, soaking the long t-shirt she'd been sleeping in before she'd woken up, and the impulse to run out into the storm had overtaken her. In an instant, the t-shirt was transparent and clinging to her thin body. She opened her legs wide and felt the rain lash her bare thighs. She put her foot down to stop, but skidded on the concrete. She was about to attempt it again when the swing froze in mid-arc. She cried out in surprise, looked over her shoulder, and saw a man holding the swing steady at his chest. "Sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you," he said, as though she were a wild animal he didn't want to startle away. He stepped in front of her and she stood up, clutching her coat to cover herself. She wondered how much he had seen. "You shouldn't be out in this," he said. "The winds are dangerous." He hadn't shouted, but she heard him clearly, as if he knew how to make the air around him still. "You're out in this," she said. He flashed a broad smile, laughing. "You're right, I am." His teeth were white and straight. Beads of water streamed down his face. A faint smile lingered at the corners of his lips. He was handsome, she decided. "Come on," he said. "The storm's moving in. We'll be right in the center of it if we stay here." He held out his hand. His confidence annoyed her. Did he really expect her to hold his hand? He seemed to think she was younger than her 18 years. A clap of thunder startled her, and a jagged fork of lightning streaked across the clouds. She grabbed his hand. It was warm and reassuring. They headed back down the promenade, the wind behind them, propelling them forward so they were half running. It was impossible to avoid the puddles, and they splashed through them, the man laughing, shaking away the rain, the girl allowing herself to be led through the deserted, rain-swept town. They crossed to the other side and headed up a back road. "Almost there," he said. She was struck by how casual he seemed about it all, as if meeting a girl on a swing in a storm was an everyday occurrence. They stopped outside a house of flats facing the old chapel. She stared up at the wrought iron balustrades. As he inserted a key in the lock, she thought of running away, but she was so cold and tired when the door swung open she stepped inside. The sound of the wind was instantly muffled. "I'm on the top floor," he said. She followed him up the narrow stairs in the darkness. There was a fragrance of polish and damp and the sense of sleeping people behind the doors they passed. It was like something half remembered from her dreams, of walking barefoot on creaking floorboards, and endless corridor shadows. When they reached the top landing, he let her in to a dark room.